This week on a quick chat with the unemployed alcoholic, I got to chat with my friend Erskin Anivitarte, better known as Erskin Music. That's a little easier to find him as. Check him out after you give this episode a listen. You're going to like it. We get into a lot of stuff, a lot of practical stuff, and some emotional stuff as well. So check it out. And at the end, check out the song Grace Made the First Move, which will be played in its entirety thanks to permission from Erskin Music. Enjoy the chat. Welcome to a quick chat with the unemployed alcoholic. Who am I talking to?
This is Erskin Anivitarte, also known as Erskin Music.
Well, hey, Erskin. Erskin Music. Tell me about that.
Well, people were struggling with my last name, which is Anivitarte, and so many people had recommended maybe you should just go with Erskin since Erskin is already unique. We'll just go with that. So I decided, okay, if that's what the people need, then that's what I'll give them. Just Erskin Music.
If that's what the people need, huh?
If that's what they need.
What's the heritage of your last name?
It's French Dominican, and so there's a lot of people in Latin America. Obviously, the Dominican Republic is more common for that name, but from time to time you will see it around, although it's not very common here in the United States.
Gotcha. And is that your background then as well?
Well, I'm originally from Texas, and so somewhere intermingled in our family tree, there's some connection with the Dominican Republic, but I'm not actually from the Dominican Republic. I'm from a little farther north of there, a little nation called Texas.
All right. So you grew up in Texas?
Grew up in Texas, Central Texas area. For those that are listening that know anything about Texas or Texans, you know that we are pretty proud of our state. I would say Texas is probably about 3 or 4 different states all combined into one. The Central Texas area is it's kind of its own thing around Waco and Baylor and Austin and that kind of thing. And then you get into South Texas, San Antonio, and then beyond East Texas, West Texas, North Texas, and so Central Texas is kind of its own thing and a good place to be from. Really hot there, like most of Texas, but I like hot weather. I like it warm.
So three distinct, separate cultures or states there?
Maybe 3 or 4. I mean, East Texans are they're kind of their own thing. They're the folks that are most likely to succeed from the United States of America, and
Okay.
they'll probably do that soon, depending on the outcome of upcoming election.
We'll know in November. Actually, this will air sometime in November. So,
Oh, okay. So yeah, we'll know by then, depending on the outcome of the election, if East Texas is still a part of the union.
so did you travel a lot as a kid? How did you develop this intimate knowledge of all these different regions of Texas?
Texas history, baby. We all study Texas history, and we are so proud of our state. But no, I didn't actually really do a lot of traveling until I guess you would probably say the last 8 years or so, traveling and doing music, and then kind of traveling all over the United States, traveling over to various parts of Texas, traveling around the world. I became a little bit more familiar with what's going on in my own backyard.
And now, are you based in Nashville now?
We hail from Nashville, Tennessee. That's where home base is. That's where I'm broadcasting this from.
All right. I've got some friends in Nashville. It's a really cool spot. The culture there, and you've got a phenomenal comedy scene there.
There is. I wasn't really aware of that at first when I started doing open mics because I thought the open mics were just music. And then I started realizing that there's open mics comedy, and then there's a comedy sort of scene here that is pretty neat. So
Yeah. Well, it's always a nightmare for a comedian to show up for an open mic and then find out it's a music open mic. Is that the same for a musician showing up for a comedy open mic?
you know what? I only did that one time in my illustrious career. I showed up at an open mic in Memphis, Tennessee, and when I got there, I was kind of confused as to why nobody was getting any instruments out. And I thought these must all be vocalists, and they just must sing a cappella. And so when they called my name, I got up there with my instrument. They said, "Hey, this is a comedy open mic." It's like, well, I guess the joke is on me, but they were gracious and they allowed me to play a couple songs and still be part of the night. But yeah, that can be confusing.
Yeah, a good friend of mine by the name of Rick Roberts, he is a comedian from Nashville, and he got his start in comedy kind of on that same thing. He showed up with a guitar and was ready to do a guitar open mic or a musical open mic, and it was a comedy open mic. And here it is, some odd years later, and he has done a lot with comedy.
That's a good place to start. I know some people. There's a gentleman by the name of Steve Goody who does comedy through music, and he has a phenomenal routine. But I mean, he'll have you in stitches, and he's playing these silly songs, but they kind of have a serious tone to them. But he's just kind of making light of a lot of things that maybe we get a little bit too anxious about from time to time.
Yeah, I think there's a common vibe amongst both comedians and musicians that we're able to utilize the tools that are available to us to have some conversations. You know,
Hmm.
yeah.
Definitely.
So tell me, what brought you into music?
Well, I've done music as sort of a side thing for many years. I was instrumentalist playing trombone through junior high, high school, college, and then played beyond in various jazz bands and different musical groups with that, and sang along the way, and was men's ensemble, and voice lessons, and kind of your more classical music trained musician. But then I started getting into writing some of my own original music, and thought that that would just be kind of a side hobby, but people started liking it, and that it became more of a focus to what it was that we were doing, and so we just have gone with that and have been doing that now for the last 8 years, and it's been a fun journey.
So performing cover stuff or performing an ensemble type stuff gave you the skill set, and then once you started doing your own thing, people have kind of responded to that.
Yeah, that's kind of the way that things worked, and didn't necessarily see that coming, but I've always enjoyed music, and so it's not anything that I am against. I just was thinking that was just for a certain period of life and just for enjoyment on the side. And although I do enjoy it, there is a business side of it in which, if you're doing it full time, there's a little bit more strategic demand for what it is that you're doing.
Strategic demand for what you're doing, huh?
Hmm. Yeah, you have to actually plan to be at a certain place and then actually go there and be there at a certain time.
All right, yeah. So this started out as a hobby, and then just kind of the draw is what has kind of pivoted into a business or a full-time vocation?
Yeah, I mean, I would be less than forthright if I didn't say that there's probably a lot of miracles, as I understand them, that have taken place that have kind of brought me along in this. But recognizing that there were people who were willing to either have me come perform or be a part of whatever program that they were, issuing conferences, retreats, camps, all those different things. It has kind of turned into something where get it on the schedule, and you keep doing it over time and keep having new ideas about how you can do it better. That's kind of become the business side of it. I'm just recently finishing up recording a new single that's going to be on a upcoming album, Lord willing, called "Just Dance." And so there's just been some fun, kind of bends and twists and turns in the road, and it's allowed us to have build a team that kind of really enjoys what it is that we're doing.
Cool, cool. Is there one of those miraculous opportunities that specifically comes to mind?
Yeah, I would definitely say that getting into this whole project was one step of faith, I would call it, because when we moved to Nashville, we didn't really have any contacts in the music industry, and we weren't affiliated with a church. We didn't have a job. We didn't have a house. We didn't really have a plan, except we knew we were going to, dive into music, and this was Music City, and so maybe something would happen from that. And as a result of just a lot of different things coming together very quickly, we were able to figure out what resources were available in Nashville, and then figure out how to marshal those resources and good people to be able to work with, and kind of turn it into something that was perpetuating itself.
Boy, Nashville's got to be kind of an intimidating place to just put everything out there,
Well, I don't know that I knew enough about Nashville to really
huh?
understand that. I mean,
Ignorance was a little bliss there, huh?
yeah, I think it was because there were some people who, before I left, they said, you're gonna go to Nashville up there with the big boys, and I'm thinking, I don't know if they're big or little. I mean, I don't know what boys are in Nashville. I'm just gonna go and see what happens. So that's been fun.
Yeah, from a music standpoint, there's just incredible talent in Nashville, which can be both a great thing for finding people to collaborate with and whatnot, but also it would be very easy to get kind of washed over and kind of lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. For myself, it's interesting because I have never sensed, it's kind of the musician, the comedian, you when this you become self-aware and you begin to realize I don't think I'm like other people. It's not that they're bad, and it's not that I'm bad, but I'm starting to realize I don't think the way other people do, and I don't do the things that other people do. And when you kind of become comfortable in your own skin, and you're, confident of who you are, then you can actually, I think, enjoy life a little bit more because you're not trying to be someone else. Although you appreciate your influences in life, you recognize I can never be them, but I can be me, and I can be a better version of me each day and, each season of life. And so that's really what we've enjoyed is that process of just self-discovery, and then beyond that, recognizing that there's other people out there who can do some things in a tremendous manner that I would never be able to do, and then being able to partner with them and then do a greater work than either the two of us or three of us or four of us could ever do ourselves.
So it sounds to me like you are confident enough in who you are to be able to appreciate and benefit from other people's talents, huh?
On my best days. On my confidence is good. I think on my best days, let's call it confidence and direction and vision and purpose and goal orientated. But maybe on my worst days, there may be a little pride mixed in there.
Is there something that comes to mind that might have tipped the scales a little bit more towards the pride side?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the things that I want to talk about. You have a show that gears toward people who are recovering in various manners, but I would probably say that my greatest area of need for recovery is just self righteousness. We can become
Self
so
righteousness.
yeah, self righteousness. Come on, that's finding some way to evaluate yourself a little better than somebody else because of, and then you just fill in the blank with any
Mm,
number of things.
yeah.
And as a result of that, you begin to, walk and talk and live with a certain sense of arrogance or aloofness to some of the struggles and the concerns around you. And that can be a very self destructive thing. And so I want to constantly be vigilant about that. And, I'm married and we have two kids, two beautiful kids, and my wife is a good litmus test for when I maybe tip the scale
That's
too much
yeah.
into pride.
That's it's good to have that source of true feedback.
Yes. And rather instant feedback sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. So your wife kind of helps out with that a little bit. Do you have anybody else in your world that that specifically kind of helps you keep that in check?
Yeah, so I'm blessed to have access to and give access to a number of different people who do that. I think of a couple of guys who are kind of my accountability partners, just in the sense that they regularly check in with me and kind of figure out what's really going on in my world. And, we talk about life and talk about various decisions that are coming up. But then beyond that, I've got a litany of people who are older than me, men who have gone through various things and various seasons of life beyond me, who are able to give wisdom and counsel and guidance and instruction, and maybe look out for some of the pitfalls, who have known me over the course of years and kind of know some of my natural tendencies to maybe stray in certain areas and become prideful or conceited. And so I've tried to make sure that I consult regularly with these men and these trusted people in my life that can speak a word in season and obviously sound the alarm if they see something that's amiss.
You use the term gift to describe that, huh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think of any number of people who are themselves just a treasure. Just when I see the phone and I see the names of the people who are on the phone, it instantly gives me a sense of joy knowing that I'm going to get a chance to answer it or very soon be able to respond back to whoever it is that's calling, because I know that they're going to bring a word of encouragement, maybe a word of challenge, maybe a word that's going to direct the next place of vision in my life. And so I'm very thankful for each of those instances.
Man, I could just hear that gratitude in your voice, and actually, I mean, it just kind of reminds me of some of those similar relationships that I have, and I kind of had what I'll say is a misunderstanding of what an accountability relationship is before my walk through the recovery process. I always thought of accountability as somebody who was going to be calling me up and checking on me and seeing if I'm walking the straight and narrow, well, kind of almost like a policing situation. And
Hmm.
man, that's just not it at all, is it?
No, it's not. It's really more of a, we like to describe it as a place of access more than just somebody that's a
Mm.
cop who's going to wait. And, did you do something wrong? Up, I'm going to strike you. But just having access to ask certain questions, and there's no form to it in the sense that this is the first question that's going to be asked and this is the second question that's going to be asked. It's more of an organic relationship where you have access and you allow people to see into your life with transparency so that they can speak to the issues of their life, and that's been a benefit.
And you said the word access a number of times. How do you go about granting or even putting boundaries around that access?
Yeah, so one of the first things you have to do is you kind of have to be present. I mean, we don't talk every day, but we talk regularly enough for them to know what's going on in my life, and we talk, candidly enough about various things that, it's the question beyond the question, like, how are you doing? Most Americans will say, I'm doing great, doing fine.
Mm, yeah.
I don't know that any of us are doing fine. I don't know that anybody is okay. So you can either leave at that point and say, okay, well, I've at least asked a question and we have an access point and then we're going on to something else. Or you can actually stop and then ask the second question: how are you doing with this area of your life? Or the last time we talked, this was an issue and where are we at with that? And so those kind of conversations where we talk about access and transparency and just really being present in the conversation, and not being gone too long from certain conversations like that are helpful and beneficial.
Yeah, yeah, I know for me, as I was kind of going through the recovery process, also I can tell by the way that you're talking that you're a man of the Christian faith. Is that correct?
Christ and Christ alone. Yes, my hope is found.
Yeah. Amen to that, brother.
There's a song in that, I think, somewhere.
Yeah, right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. I'll leave any if we're gonna break out in song, I'll leave that to you because yeah,
Okay. Well,
yeah.
maybe at some point.
Right, right. But yeah, I know for me, as I started looking at my relationships that were founded around the church, I noticed that I was lacking the depth of relationship that I had
Mhm.
in my drinking relationships.
Mm,
And I really started thinking about, okay, what are the differences here? And my genuine relationships, my deepest relationships that I've had, there's two things that are common and universal, in fact. And that one is we spend a lot of time together, and two, we're transparent with each other. And it sounds like you just hit those exact same things in your description there.
yep, absolutely. You got to have some time there because that is kind of the boundary marker of defining, how much access you're going to be able to grant. If you're never around
Yeah,
anybody,
yeah,
there's that's instant disconnection between the fact that you don't know really what's going on in their life and in their world and their context, and that can be a struggle at times because I travel a lot, and so the phone is really the best way to get in contact with me because proximity is not something that we're going to always have.
yeah.
But having some of the means of technology available to us today, that makes it vitally important that we be able to connect with one another, and can do that in a variety of ways.
Yeah, yeah. The technology is there if the relationship is there.
Hmm.
Yeah. I know another thing that I discovered when I started getting real with some of my Christ centered relationships was I would talk about real stuff that was going on. And I always had it kind of drafted up in my head like people would run out of the room screaming. And that's just not what happened.
Yeah.
Most of the time, if I get as bare and transparent as I possibly could, that's the stuff that people will engage with and deeply understand. People don't run out of the room, people open up.
Right, 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 right. And I'm so glad that you said that that effect begins to take place, that people begin to open up. It
Mm,
makes your transparency, it gives access to them for them to be transparent.
that's
If
right.
they share that, then I don't have to keep the secret anymore
Yeah,
either.
yeah,
And it creates those kind of relationships. And so that's been extremely helpful and I think healthy.
yeah. Because our faults, our downfalls, our sin, to use Christianese, are things that we're ashamed of. Those don't make us different than man. Those don't make us strange or weird. That's actually the common thing.
Wow, that is well said. There's a couple of phrases that you've picked up on that are kind of giving me vision to be able to write some things. And I'm always, kind of like the artist, or the book "Steal Like an Artist." I think Austin Kleon is the writer of that book, and it's like we're always looking for phrases and words and ideas, and like, ooh, that sounded right. But yeah, that really is a man. That really is important that we be able to see other people coming along and coming alongside us, not because we're different than them, but because we're like them. So I love that thought.
Man, yeah, yeah. I got goose pimples. So, man, so it sounds like your faith is incredibly important to you.
Yeah, I would say that's the cornerstone, the backbone of everything. I go around and I have the opportunity to speak to a lot of different groups in a lot of different settings, but I don't really have any authority. I mean, I'm not famous. I don't really have anything to give people other than the story of what has happened to me and transformed me that could also impact and transform them, that they could also share with others to impact and transform their lives. And we could see movements and opportunities that are created for that, and advance that is created from that, and not sort of this downward trajectory that we have recently began to see more and more in our culture and our society.
Man, you just said something that resonated so strongly with me. You said that all you can do is share your story. With you, it's through song. With me, it's through conversations and
Hmm.
stand up comedy. But all we can do is share our story, and then give people the opportunity to respond. It's not it's not up to us to lay out the case or the legal briefing or the um, or definitely not the coercion. We just can tell our story and see what happens.
Right. And I think, at least in this season of life, it's just been so vital that we really, I say we, myself and friends and team and everybody around, really tell our story and learn how to tell our story well. And that's the communication of whether it be comedy or whether it be conversation, whether it's the communication of music or other means, film, television, technology. Tell our story well, because the world is inundated with stories that people are telling. And sometimes those stories aren't so good. And sometimes those stories aren't true, if we were to
Mm.
define truth as a objective thing. And so when we tell our story, we have the opportunity to strike those things which are good, which are noble, which are true, and which will lead people without having to be heavy handed about it, but will lead people in a better path and a better frame of reference than sometimes what it is that they're getting.
I think people are hungry for something that's true and righteous and genuine.
Hmm. And people love the arts. I mean, I know that we're sort of in a pandemic right now.
Wait,
There's
what's going
definitely
on now?
so I've heard that there's a pandemic out there, but yet and still, people still gravitate toward art and beauty, and it is something that is a common point of reference for every single individual. And it may not be the same manner of art, but there is something that helps us to know what life is and then enjoy life. And I think art bridges the gap between the two of those things in a very powerful way.
That is poetic, sir.
Mm. Well, you're recording this, so I'm going to go back and listen to what
Perfect, perfect. Well, Erskine, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about who you are. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to hear a little bit about what's going well in your life and what you might be struggling with. Thanks a lot for listening. We will be right back with more from Erskine in just a minute. Welcome back to a quick chat with the unemployed alcoholic. I'm here talking with Erskin from Erskin Music. Thank you so much, Erskin, for sharing with us a little bit about who you are. What's one thing that's going well in your life right now?
Well, again, thank you for having me. And let's dive into that question because there's a lot of things that are going well these days. And I know that we're in a difficult time for a lot of people. And I don't make light of that by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that one of the things that is encouraging to me is that there are things that are going well that are causing me to be able to work with other people and to help other people. And one of the things that I would say is going well for me is that when the pandemic started, I was able to take some time to just sort of disconnect from my previous travel schedules and all the different things, momentum that we had going, and really evaluate where the areas that I would be able to make an impact were, and discovered that, having conversations like this and having conversations on a daily basis with people, using some of the platforms and media that we have available to us today, was a vital way of making connections with people. And as a result of that, we really started getting some momentum of people who were encouraged by those daily shows and those daily conversations and just sort of the worldview that we had around us. And that created more conversations and partnerships with people. And as a result of that, more vision in terms of organizations that we could work with. And that's been an exciting thing during this time, is to see that we are not where we were at before because we have more vision, we have more resources, we have more team members, we have more direction behind what it is that we're doing.
Wow, so it sounds like something that could have been a destructive thing just turned out to be a disruptive thing where the flow was disrupted, and that gave you an opportunity to actually reevaluate, re-strategize, and refocus, huh?
hmm Yeah, and so that's been a healthy process, and I think everybody has sort of had to go through the what are the things that are most vital during this time question. What are the things that are going to last? What are the things that are temporary? And I know that there's some people who have kind of had the mentality of, well, I'm just going to wait for everything to go back to normal. I recognized very early on, maybe the second day of the pandemic, things are not ever going to go back to normal. And so, if that's the case, where will we be when we get back to a sense of stability? And so, just thinking ahead with relationship to some of those things and where we would need to be as a team has driven us, I think, forward in positive ways.
Man, there's so much value and wisdom in that. Thank you for sharing that. If we can step back and not think about getting back to normal, but getting back to important or getting back to what it's going to be like.
Mhm.
I know Wayne Gretzky famously said one time that he was such a good hockey player because while everybody else was skating to where the puck is, he was skating to where the puck is going to be.
Mm,
Uh, you're in your analogy there in your discussion about everybody wanting to get back to normal. Everybody's trying to skate to where the puck was, not even where it is or where it's going to be.
yeah, that's a great analogy, and you know, no wonder he's in the Hall of Fame as
Yeah.
one of the greatest hockey players in history,
Yeah, he's a pretty smart fella and a little talent in there too.
for sure.
Oh man, it's so refreshing to me to hear somebody answer the question of what's going well with the simple phrase of a lot of things are going well.
Well, yeah, we released a song about a month or so into the pandemic that has turned into one of my most popular songs. I would say maybe my best song that has been released to date. And I say that not necessarily by the numerics of the whole situation, but because my wife said it was the best song.
Hey, yep, there's some votes count more than others.
I was gonna say that's a very important thing because she's heard all the songs and she's heard all the demos and she's heard all the work tapes, and if she thinks that this was one is the best, then it's probably the best. But beyond that, we've had several different media outlets reach out to us and say, "Hey, we want to take this from just an audio version of a song to an actual music video, and we're willing to fund the music video so that we can distribute this and use this in greater proportionality." And so that has been encouraging to us to be able to think beyond just merely, okay, we record a song, we release a song, but we're recording a song and knowing that there's going to be a music video that's associated with it, knowing that that video is going to go out all over the world. Not only will the song and the video be of some prominence, but the message behind the song which is Jesus worth it, is going to continue to go forth and amplify as a result of this project. And so we're encouraged and excited about that. Well, in the midst of everything else that was going on, we still, except for a couple of months where we began doing some other daily conversations and ventures, were able to travel quite a bit and then develop two new brand sponsors to join us in our efforts. One of those being Moody Radio, and the other being Life Action Ministry out of Michigan. And so those two brand sponsors are providing some opportunities for us to partner with them in radio, which obviously, as you know, is a means of reaching the entire planet. And that has been a fun partnership, as well as Life Action. They travel nationally and internationally in a revival type of ministry. And so we're partnering with them and doing more and more activities with them. And so it's really been a neat time to be able to see more people sign on and say, hey, we want to be a part of this experience and we want to do some things together that we would not have otherwise been able to do singularly. And so that's been the strength of some of those partnerships. And if that wasn't enough, we just recently finished recording another single. And we're just, with all the things that are going on right now, good things, just trying to figure out where we should place that in order of releasing that, because that will be a fun song for people to get involved in. And if that wasn't enough, I actually also became a cartoon this summer. So that's
uh,
been one of the
well, you've made it, my friend. I mean, that's the top rung right there. You're a
exactly.
cartoon, huh?
Once you become a cartoon character, things begin to change. You get certain parking places now, and you get keys to the city. No, none of those things have happened, but it's been fun to kind of check in with parents who have kids that are young, who have really resonated with the music and the message, and being able to partner with some children's singers and performers to do some things that are just fun projects. There's so many heavy things that are out there these days, Aaron, and it's important that we have some light moments, some moments of levity, but also some moments that bring us content and clarity in our lives. And so that's been a fun project. And I laugh every time I see myself as a cartoon, but I know that there's a greater purpose behind everything that we're doing.
We talk about this disruptive time and how things are still progressing through this time, things that weren't happening before. Some of these huge accomplishments that you were talking about, but it really comes down to mission. If you have a mission that's driving what you're doing, if you hit a roadblock, if you hit a dead end, you can pivot and stay
Mhm.
on mission, but change the way that you're doing it. If live performances aren't happening, you can have some conversations. You can develop a cartoon. You can reach out and build some sponsorship relationships and some new collaborative things with videos. I mean, that's to me that is just so incredible to hear how you stay true to mission but stay creative in execution.
Sure. And we have more technology available than we've ever had in the history of the world. And so why not use this technology to our advantage? It's almost as though we've been pushed into using the technology. And if we're willing to move forward, it's right there at our disposal. It's right there at our fingertips. And literally, we can communicate with the world around us with very little effort now because of that technology.
Yeah.
I actually recently just finished doing a concert last week for an audience in India at a conference that I'm usually at this time of year, but the conference was virtual this year, and so they brought me in a certain segment and reached a totally different audience than we'd been reaching before, but still connected with some of the same people that I'd been working with for the last 5 years. And so it's just really neat to see how this is a golden age of opportunity, if we'll see it as that.
This is the golden age of opportunity if we will see it as that. Wow, that is good. That is good. I want to also, though, dive into another piece of that. I know there's a lot of newer artists that listen to this, and a lot of us end up kind of getting it in our head that somebody's going to discover us and then things are going to come together. And a couple of things that jumped out to me as you were telling about some of these things. One, it wasn't nothing's happening and then all of a sudden one thing happens and that's it. It is a lot of different things. It's a lot of things that come together over the course of a long time. You know,
Sure.
the India situation you're talking about, that's a relationship that's been going on for 5 years or longer. And then the other thing is when people start reaching out to you because you can bring value and help them achieve their goals, to me that's where it's at. That's when we can help other people fulfill their mission and accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. We'll end up with a lot more opportunities, and we'll end up a lot more satisfied with those opportunities than if we're looking for the person that's going to help us achieve our goals and objectives.
Yeah, I've always been a little different in that regard, in the sense that I don't necessarily like to wait around for things to happen.
Okay.
Try to apply myself to what is happening,
Okay.
see what might manifest itself from that. And so it's been neat to really plug into the fact that we're going to always be moving certain things forward, and we have certain ideas about things. And once we share those ideas with other people, if there are people that begin to resonate or they want to contribute to that and say, well, maybe we can take it in this direction, or maybe we can do that. Somebody once told me, you just keep saying yes until you have to say no.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
and I always remembered that, is that, even if it was the smallest little thing, like I would go and play for something, and, there's no pay involved, and, you're gonna just, be out there. I always thought, well, if I don't go and play, then not only will I not be playing and getting better at my craft, but then I won't meet the people that could potentially be there. And then some of those people might have some ideas that contribute to what it is that I'm trying to do. And so just always taking those opportunities when they're available and when you can, because sometimes they're not always available, and then sometimes those opportunities change, and so on and so forth. But it's just been neat to see, at least in my mind, I'm pretty solidified about the fact that you know I don't want to necessarily be discovered, because in a lot of ways, if you're discovered by somebody that already has something that they're doing, then they discover you so that you can plug into what their vision
Mm,
is.
yeah.
And if you don't already have something that you're doing and that you're about, then the collaboration is only one sided. And I think for a lot of artists that I've met who are in Nashville and moved to Nashville that want to get quote unquote discovered, you get here, you do a good job at your performance, and you just wait for somebody to sign you as an artist. And I honestly thought that's the only way that you could do music as a living. And when they get signed to a label, well, the label already has a certain thing that they do. They already have momentum. They already have a vision. They already have a purpose. And so you fit into that purpose. And that really is just kind of what you do. You become part of what they're doing. But if you have your own vision, then those collaborative efforts, as you had mentioned, those become two sided. We're able to help you, and you're able to help us, and we can collaborate together in a much healthier fashion.
That makes a lot of sense, my friend. I had a college professor that used to tell me, you can have anything you want in this world as long as you just help enough other people get everything that they want.
Yes, well said.
Thank you, Pat Clarecki from Ferris State University, for that one.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for sharing those things that are going well. Wonderful insights there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What's one thing that you're struggling with right now?
Yeah, and this one doesn't take a lot of effort to come up with. About a month or so into the pandemic, my grandfather passed away.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Well, thank you for that. It was one of those situations where, he had struggled for years with pancreatic cancer, and just kind of knowing that he was deteriorating throughout the spring. I was on a tour down in Texas and just made it a priority to go by and have what became the final conversation that I would have with him, and just really thanked him for a lot of what he had done to kind of establish my mind in order of things, and really appreciated him. Asked him about his belief and understanding of what was to happen next after we passed from this life, and was he confident in his relationship with Jesus. And we had some wonderful conversations, short conversation, but we checked all the boxes there in that conversation of things that I know that would have wanted him to hear before he passed. And, I got the news that he passed. And unfortunately, it was one of those times where they were not letting people gather together and have funerals because of the concerns of COVID. And so it was a small internment, and it was almost surreal, because on one hand, he wasn't here, he wasn't around. It was the first time in my life that I could think I can't go into the other room and talk to him or pick up a phone and call him. And so there was just that sense of loss there. Even though we'd settled a lot of things and had some great conversations, and then not having other people around us during those times and just having a smaller gathering, that was difficult. And, even now, today, there's this void that it's hard to explain, it's hard to express to people, but it just has given me reason to pause in the midst of all these wonderful things that are going on and just think about the brevity of life and think about the value of relationships, and you're not always promised to have those relationships with people. And so really the depth of that, and you know enjoying the time that you do have and trying to be present and not so distracted by other things has become more of a focus. And then really trying to figure out what are the essentials of life. All of us are moving through this life, and then we'll have eternity. And so what are the essentials of life? There are some things, even in relationship to raising kids, that are not really all that important. Although you could stress out in the moment about those, you think about the long game and the long perspective. And what that means is, there were probably times when my grandfather disciplined me or didn't discipline me for certain things. And at the moment, those were acute details that maybe caused a certain response, whether positive or negative. But as you think about the totality of somebody's life, those important things were that he was there, that he was a hard worker, that he was consistent in what he did, and that he was a man of his word. He was a man of integrity. He was a man who worked with his hands and was able to build things and was productive and skillful and thrifty in that way. And so, just thinking about that in relationship to my own life, what are my kids going to say about me? That I didn't let them play video games that one Friday afternoon when they ask, or will it be those things of more enduring characteristics?
Oh, it sounds like he played an incredible role in shaping your own values.
Yeah, and so when I say my grandfather, maybe people think that's a couple of generations removed, but I actually was adopted by my grandparents very young, and so I lived with them until I went to high or college. Um, Except for a couple of years when I did go and try to live with my mom, and that didn't work out so well. Really had a difficult time not really knowing her, and then having a situation where I lived with her, getting to know one another. That was difficult. But then I spent the rest of the time with my grandparents, and so he was affectionately my father.
A pastor of mine named Kyle
Hmm.
Ray, he shared with me one time that there's a club that we all end up joining, but nobody wants to join, and that's when our father or our father figure passes away. And he shared that with me shortly after he lost his father, and then a little while after that, I lost my father, and it's sad. But I too, like yourself, think back on that relationship and count myself so blessed to have had the example that my dad set for me, to have that pillar of what is a godly man,
Right.
what is an honest man, what is a man who values family, hard work, genuine relationships. To have that example, and I too had that wonderful opportunity to spend time with my dad in his last days, to spend time with him and say things that needed to be said, to have conversations. And now it's coming up on the 2 year anniversary of his
Mm,
passing, and man, I just think back on him with very fond and appreciative memories.
yeah. I I think that all those words I can totally resonate with that you just spoken, and in a way that, just even hearing you say that is comforting. Just knowing that there's other people. Obviously, there's other people who have lost, their father and lose people that are close to them. It became a little bit more acute because we were at the studio recording last week, and my producer's wife's father had recently just passed away, and so we went to the store to go get some cards to express our condolences. And even while walking down the aisle and looking for cards, sympathy cards, I was just struggling. Like it was difficult to get out of there in one piece, trying to reach out to other people who were in a similar situation, but just knowing that's still very an acute sense of loss in my life as well.
This world is a little bit worse off for not having your grandfather and my father in it, but it's a much better place for having had them in it.
Yes, yes, that's well said. You know, uh, I had some really good conversations with my grandfather. He was a veteran, and so we talked a lot about the flag and what it means to honor veterans, and kind of some of those expressions that for one reason or another have come under fire in our culture and our society. And so it's really given a lot of perspective and clarity there, and I'm thankful for those conversations and his example in that area as well.
Yeah. Well, I can say with great confidence that your grandfather is very proud of you, and your grandfather contributed to you becoming a great man. Erskine, when I hear you talk about your mission, when I hear you talk about your relationship with Christ, when I hear you talk about connecting with people and making an impact, man, you are admirable. You are an honorable man. You're a man who is after genuine relationships with people. You bring comfort to people. You bring truth to people. You're doing important work. You're able to express these feelings and these emotions and these very true things that are from deep down inside of you. And through that, you're able to connect with people, and you'll continue to have the opportunity to connect with people. You, my friend, are a great man who is doing important work, and I count myself blessed to know you.
Well, I appreciate all those words. I just am so thankful to have a team of people around me who everybody is skilled at what it is that they do, but I've been blessed to be able to work with people and partner with people who see things with more dimension than just here's the task that needs to get done and here's the song that needs to be recorded or here's the show that needs to be played. I think back even a couple of years ago, some of my dear friends in Florida at the University of Florida who had scheduled me for two concerts, and after the first warm up on stage, I received a call from my wife who was on the phone with the doctor, and the doctor was telling me that my wife had cancer. And so I played the two shows tonight, but in between that, there are just a team of people who were supporting me and, a part of that whole experience there, beyond just merely the tasks of our life and the responsibilities of our life, just actual people who care enough to, just do the deep dive in your life and encourage you in those times and support you in those times. And, I want to do that as well for other people. And I guess in a certain sense, when you are when you have gone through things and when you experience things in your own life, it gives you that extra added measure of compassion and relatability to understand the depth of what other people might be experiencing and going through, and to be able to reach out with a greater level of sensitivity and a greater level of understanding. And so I thank you for all those words and appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I look forward to sometime in the future when we can connect up live and in person. This has been a wonderful chat, but I'd love to give you a big hug, my friend.
Well, I'll take that virtual hug for now. And
All right, all right. How can people reach you or find out what you got coming up and all that?
so I'm Erskine of Erskine Music, or Erskin Anivitarte, as some of those profiles still exist online. And we're anytime or any place, I should say, where music is streamed or played, you can find me there on various platforms. So if they listen to music on a certain platform, I should be there.
We're also going to end this episode with one of your songs so people can get a little sneak peek of your music there.
Yeah, that's one of the great ways that people can connect with me. I'm also on YouTube because we've got a lot of added videos, and just have hired a social media director who's going to be putting out more videos and more content. And so the YouTube platform for my broadcast and show called Erskine Music Show and The Way Forward is found on YouTube, also on Facebook. And there's just a variety of ways that people can get in contact with me.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you so much for being involved in this. This has been a good chat, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right. If anybody out there wants to ever reach me, you can always do so through my website, which is theunemployedalcoholic.com. Yes, that is the real website. If you go to that website and check that out, you can find stand-up comedy videos. You can find information on the podcasts, and as well as a whole host of resources and other stuff. So go check that out. And thanks for listening. Thanks for being you, and have a great day.
I'm a self-made man with my well-laid plans, and I was taught to do it on my own. But I've tried and failed, and I've been derailed. From dust you picked me up, and now I know. Grace made the first move. Oh, what have I to fear? Victory